All right, folks, Jermaine Ferrell in the house, and it is crunch time, baby. Captain Crunch Carl York is in the house, and I tell you one thing, what a week. We're week 5 of the high school football season. Had a couple of games tonight. Gretna taking on Dan River. Chatham knocked off Tunstall 19-13. That's a game we got going on tonight, and then Dan River's playing Gretna as we're taping this. And, of course, joining me right now each and every week is the publisher of Crunch Publications, Captain Crunch Carl York. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing? You sound good. You sound like you got a lot of energy.
It's called faking it, right?
You always bring it.
Good deal. Well, we'll talk a little bit about, your thoughts going into week 5 of the high school football season, because there's so much going on. A lot of these matchups is really going to shake everything out, and because we'll go over the playoff ratings in just a second, but so much going on. Your thoughts entering week 5, anything that stands out?
Well, I mean, the halves are getting richer. It seems like the teams that were good coming in and that people thought were going to be good are continuing to be good and continuing to separate themselves. The Salems and the Botetots and those. Pulaski is taking care of business. That's going to be a great game this week with Patrick Henry. We'll find out a lot about those two clubs down there in Pulaski. So that one's on my mind. The Seminoles shaking out. I mean, Brookville's kind of staked a claim on that, taking down Heritage last week and knocking off LCA the first week. So there's a lot going on. But I tell you, it's interesting, and I know you watch this stuff too, Jermaine, and you got your ear to the ground as well. But it's interesting what's going on across the state. We've got some teams that we think that, if our teams do well, they'll run into, and they may not make it just because COVID's canceling some of their games, or maybe they've had a COVID outbreak, or they've lost games. There's been some teams lose some games recently that might affect whether they get in the playoffs or not.
I see how it all shakes out. So what we'll do is we'll go over some games, and we'll take it from there. Of course, our game of the week is going to be a good one. Magna Vista taking on George Washington, a game down there in Ridgeway, and Dan River, of course, Dan River, Magna Vista getting off to a pretty good, strong start. Had that tough, close loss early on to William Byrd. And on the flip side, George Washington had a tough loss to start the season against Lord Bottop, but they've come into play. And when you look at it, this game is so key when it comes to playoff positioning. When you look at it in Region 2C, Dan River is a half a point behind Appomattox for first. While on the flip side, you look at George Washington, if you're looking at the playoff ratings as we go through that right now in Region 4D, where back in the day all the teams would get in, but only the top 4. George Washington right now, they are third, as they are about 4 points behind Pulaski, and they have roughly a 1-point lead over Amherst. So this is a big game for both teams as far as playoff positioning in their respective regions.
Yeah, all these games are big now. I mean, it's just it's that time of the year. I mean, we're only 5 weeks in, but in this spring pandemic season, 5 weeks is the end of the year. We only got one more week of regular season. So you're right. These are big games. And, GW and Magna Vista both got bit early on, probably because, they didn't get a lot of practice in. They didn't get any scrimmages, and they both got knocked off by pretty good teams early on. So you're right. I mean, it starts to feel like, these teams can't afford to lose.
It's neat. The weather's going to be nice because normally at the end of the year, and now we're going on the other end, and the sun is out. So it's kind of like the season has flipped, where it would be dark, but now it's early. The sun's out. So that's a neat thing. So
yeah.
Another game you mentioned, we got our eye on this one. Patrick Henry taking on Pulaski County. Pulaski County right now, they are 2 points back of Salem. Both teams are 4-0. You talk about a tough finish to the regular season. I can't think of a team that has a tougher finish in Pulaski County, hosting Patrick Henry and then going on the road to play Salem. I mean, that's your last 2 games, and they've been rolling 4-0, but they're ending the season in a tough spot. Patrick Henry, by the way, they're first in the region, in Region 5D right now, as they have a lead of about a little more, just a shade right at 2 points over Albemarle. But Patrick Henry has an extra game, so all that should shake out. But just your thoughts about that good matchup. And Patrick Henry's had some success against Pulaski, so this has been a pretty good rivalry over the last few years.
Yeah, they've had some success against Pulaski, but they haven't played Coach Mark Dixon at the helm of Pulaski. So, that makes it a little bit different. He seemed to have brought some energy in his coaching style and all that success from Galax and from playing in the NFL and playing in college. So that's one to watch. But Coach Fiddler at PH, you got to give him a nod too, because he likes to throw the ball around. He's going to stretch. He's going to try to stretch Pulaski out from sideline to sideline and then try to run the ball. So that's a great game. That'll be our game of the week as well. We'll be down there taking that one in at Crunch for the Roanoke area. And I just think it shapes up to be a really good game. You got a lot of really interesting matchups in that game. Gunn at quarterback for PH. If he gets hot, and he has gotten hot in the past against Pulaski, if he gets hot, he causes everybody a lot of problems when you're facing him. And I really like Pulaski County's quarterback. He can really drop dimes in there too. So it's going to be a good game. And you're right, Pulaski County, the 2 last games for them are just brutal. That's a brutal schedule.
But here's the thing: if they win those 2, then more than likely, they'll be a regional #1 seed. So if you win those 2 games, you're in good shape. Meanwhile, another intriguing matchup. These 2 are district rivals. They always seem to have a good little matchup. Radford taking on Floyd County. Now, Radford, they were knocked off last week by Glenver at the end. Radford right now, they are a quarter of a point behind Fort Chiswell for the 4th spot. Meanwhile, you look at Floyd County. Floyd County, they're in a tough spot. But again, this wraps up their season, by the way. Another note that we want to mention, some teams, if they don't make the playoffs, they can do a +1. So they could find another game if they want to. So we don't want to dismiss that part of it. But for the most part, everybody wants to get in the playoffs. But again, when Floyd County and Radford play, it's black and gold versus black and gold, and you can't beat that.
Can't beat that, but there is some question right now around Radford. I don't know if you'd heard this. It's late breaking, but, they've got a pause on their season right now. So that game might not take place this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how that – and that's what this COVID season's done. It may shake up, who's going and Floyd County's got they've got to play somebody else. And again, that's not confirmed, but that's what I'm hearing is that there's a pause down at Radford right now. And Radford's coming off a tough loss against Glenver last week.
Wow. Breaking news from Carl York. How about that?
Well, it's interesting this year. This year is just, you're going to get a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm hearing is that they're on pause right now.
Well, I trust your sources because you're on it, and that's something that we will definitely keep our eyes on because it's going to be important because that's a big time playoff game, particularly where Radford is sitting because this is probably too late in the game to even find a game, and that's going to be tough. And actually, I'm looking at the Three Rivers schedule right now, and apparently they have moved that game to Saturday. So that game will take place Saturday. Floyd County taking on Radford. That'll be a Saturday game, and they will play that game at actually, it looks like it's postponed or canceled.
That's right.
So I think they canceled the game. So that game, originally, it looked like they moved it to Saturday, but looking at the Three Rivers schedule, they have canceled that game. So
yeah,
Floyd County will not play Radford. So that's a big development, and if it's what you're saying, which is true, I trust what you're saying. You wouldn't say it unless it's true. That's a big deal. So we will definitely keep our eye on that one as Floyd County and Radford. That game, according to what Carl says, his sources saying it will not take place. Meanwhile, another game that's going to be interesting: K Spring taking on Christiansburg. These are 2 teams in region 3D, and right now, when you look at that region right now, K Spring as well as Christiansburg, they're right by each other. They have the same, actually, point total. They both have 6.5 points. But the trouble thing is they're like 2.25 back. So they basically, the loser's game for all intents and purposes might be even out of the running, and the winner still has a slim hope of getting into the playoffs. K Spring taking on Christiansburg.
Yeah, and K Spring coming off a tough loss against Salem. And, the thing about Salem or Botetourt or any of these really, really tough teams in the area is you got to make sure if you lose to them, you don't lose twice. You don't lose the next week too because you're so sore and beat up. And so, we'll have to see how Cave Spring rebounds from the loss to Salem this past week. But Christiansburg's had a share of injuries this week. So I mean, it's just one of those crazy years. I mean, their quarterback's been out, and they lost Henley, the receiver D-back, which was a great player for them. So they've been licking their wounds all spring as well.
Meanwhile, this is another big game coming up here. William Fleming hosting Stanton River. Now, William Fleming right now, they are a half a point behind Harrisonburg for the 4th playoff spot in Region 5D. And Stanton River, they are, in last place in the region. So obviously, if you're William Fleming, you just want to take care of business in this game because you still have a playoff shot. Stanton River, they're pretty much out of the playoff hunt, but again, they can do the +1.
Yeah, you got to be careful though. Stanton River has looked pretty good this year. I thought they've had a tough schedule as well, and Coach Leonard over there is doing a good job. So Fleming doesn't want to take their eye off the ball with them, and Fleming's had a good year as well. Coach Lovelace's doing a great job with those young men.
Meanwhile, here's another intriguing matchup from the Valley District. Rockbridge County, I tell you what, they're playing so well right now. In fact, in their region, they are in Region 3C. Rockbridge County is doing so well, and they are right now in second. They are 2 points back of Brookville in that. So this is a big game, and it's big for Harrisonburg because right now Harrisonburg, they are half a point ahead of William Fleming, that last playoff spot in Region 5D. So this is a big-time matchup for both teams. Obviously, Rockbridge County, they're needing to win to kind of stay in the running for a top seed and at least a home game, while Harrisonburg trying to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, this is a big game for Rockbridge County's done a great job this spring. They've really had a great season. And if you think back to the beginning of the year, Harrisonburg was scheduled to play Fleming the first game of the year. And I think that Harrisonburg opted not to play because they didn't have enough practice time in, or they didn't feel like they were ready. So, all these things play into, how the season's rolled out. So, but yeah, you're right. That is an important game in the Valley there.
Meanwhile, we're going to go to Salem, trying to go for back-to-back wins at Bogle Stadium, taking on the other tenant of Bogle Stadium, Hidden Valley. Hidden Valley right now, they have a record of 1-3. They did get their only win last week against Blacksburg, while Salem put up 63 against Cave Spring and win that game 63-7.
Yeah, and Hidden Valley's had some injuries. I think Matt Strong, their running back, is out for the rest of the season, with the shoulder injury. They've got a couple other key guys that are hurt. So, that doesn't help their chances against Salem either. Salem they just keep coming at you. And if you've got key guys out, then that can cause some problems. But Coach Weaver, he'll have those guys ready to play. And again, I mean, Salem, that's their second week in a row, like you said, at Bogle Field. I mean, they're getting used to that short ride over to Southwest County to play those teams.
It's a fun little ride, especially when you can win the way they do. I mean, they go over there and they handle business. But again, Hidden Valley, they're a team not to be messed with, so you don't want to mess with them. Meanwhile, we talked about this before, where teams that are below the cut line, teams above the cut line start meeting each other, and these things shake out. One of our favorite games in our area, Giles, making a trip to Highlander Heaven to play Glenver. Glenver right now, they are in third place in Region 2C. And they are actually, they have a quarter of a point lead over Fort Chiswell in that matchup, 3rd and 4th. Meanwhile, Giles is actually 2.5 points back of Glenver. And actually, Giles is actually 2 points back of the 4th playoff spot. So you talk about a big game. The fact that Radford's not playing, and then Giles, they can beat Glenver. If Glenver wins, it kind of solidifies their playoff spot. But if Giles wins, that's going to really help them and might move them into the playoffs.
Well, Glenver's interesting this year. They're 2-2, but their 2 losses. The first loss was to Stewart's Draft, which Max Preps has as number 1 in the state in that division. So, I mean, that was if you can say it was a credible loss. I mean, if you lose to what a lot of people are calling the best team in the state in Class 2, then I mean, and then they lost a close game to William Fleming, who we just talked about, in the playoff mix. So, but this is a classic. It used to always come down to Giles and Glenver every year. It used to be the last game of the year. And so, I mean, it was just, it just reminds you of the past, when these two teams are playing for something. A lot of fun.
Meanwhile, we're going to head over to the Dogwood District. Now, the Dogwood District, they're playing each other twice, I believe, in some form of the combination. So Nelson County, they get another matchup again with Alta Vista. Alta Vista right now in pretty good shape for the playoffs. They have like nearly a 3-point lead over Franklin in Region 1B. Nelson County still looking for their first win, but if you're Alta Vista, you definitely want to take care of business, like I said, in this game.
Yeah, and, Alta Vista, we went over and watched them beat William Campbell a couple weeks ago, and they've got a pretty good team. Coach Cox does a good job with them. They get lined up right, and they come right at you, and they've got some explosive players. So, and I think next week they play William Campbell again. To your point, they're doubling up on the games with their neighbors around them. So these next 2 weeks are going to be interesting for the Dogwood teams as well.
Meanwhile, we're going to go to the Seminole District. Brookville taking on Rustburg, the Campbell County rivals. Brookville, again, Rustburg struggling a little bit this year, and they played hard in a lot of games. But Brookville right now, they have, like I said, a 2-point lead for first in the region, while Rustburg is on the other end of the spectrum as they are in the bottom winless. But again, if you're Brookville, you still want to take care of business. It's a county rivalry game, and when these two teams meet, it's always a big-time rivalry.
Well, yeah, you can't sleep on Rustburg. Coach Baker does a good job with them, and you can throw the records out the window when these two get together. For some reason, this happens with certain teams, but Rustburg always seems to play Brookville tough. It always seems to be a close game. It doesn't matter what the records are. So you're right. They better not sleep on Rustburg because they could jump up and get them. And certainly being in the same county like that, I mean, it's kind of a rivalry game. I mean, they get after each other.
Meanwhile, the defending Class 2 champions in Appomattox taking on William Campbell. Again, those two teams are meeting up again. And again, Appomattox doing pretty well in their region, Region 2C. They lead the region actually by half a point. Dan Rivers nipping on their heels, while William Campbell is right now. They are definitely in the playoffs right now. They got nearly a 2-point lead over Alta Vista. So they're in third right now, William Campbell. And so they're in pretty good shape in that 7-team region. But again, we want to give our thoughts and prayers to Coach Doug Smith. He's gone down to Duke to get more treatment for cancer. So we definitely want to wish him all the best. And it's the Smith Strongs, the Smith squad. They're really playing hard for him. And it's really special to see what they're doing over in Appomattox County. The power of one. And they've always played well. I mean, this team, when you think about it, they've won 4 of the last 5 state championships.
Yeah, and Coach Smith is a special coach. I mean, he's a special guy. If you're ever there at the end of the game, he almost calls the whole community on the field for his huddle with his team after the game, and he really has done a good job in that community, rallying that community around that team for many years now. And we do wish him all the best. Nobody wants to play Appomattox. I mean, Appomattox is a juggernaut. They just they get after you at all positions, and I think they have to be one of the favorites to go all the way. Not to jinx them, but again, they're just tough year in and year out.
Now, one other side note I've noticed that the way the state championships are set up, the teams from this side of the state will have to go to the teams on that side of the state.
That's right.
So just as for future reference, just to let you know, kind of like in basketball, everybody had to come to this side of the state, but for football, everybody's got to go play the regions that are on the eastern part of the state. So that's something to keep your eye on, whoever wins those regions over there. Meanwhile, you talk about a game that is so important for playoff implications. Heritage trying to bounce back from their loss to Brookville. Jefferson Forest back in the mix, and they're trying to get back on track. Now, right now, Jefferson Forest, they are a quarter of a point behind Amherst County for that 4th spot in the region, while Heritage, with their loss, they are right now sitting in their regional spot. When you look at where they are in the region, they are 7th. They are, 5, 6. They're 7th in the region. But when you look at where their points are, they are actually, looking at it real quick, they are roughly about a 3/4 of a point behind Western Albemarle for 4th. So this is a must win for Heritage. In fact, I think Heritage will have to win out and get some help, depending on the mathematics. We don't do math to get into the playoffs. Jefferson Forest on the other end, they still need to win and get a little help too. So this probably the loser of this game is probably in trouble for the playoffs.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Heritage, they lost their quarterback Cam Burns last week. He got hurt, so they've got to figure out how to run their offense without running it through him. And if you've watched Heritage this year and for the year before, they do a lot around their quarterback. So that's a challenge for Coach Bradley over there, and he's a guy that's up for challenges, but that will be tough. And JF runs that wishbone. You better strap it on when you play JF because they're going to run downhill and they're going to run at you all night. So that'll be an interesting. I'll be interested to see the outcome of that one.
Now, meanwhile, the next game, it's an interesting development. Amherst County is playing EC Glass. Now, EC Glass, they were supposed to play a game on Tuesday, but they called that game off due to the fact they didn't want to play 3 games in 7 days, which is definitely understandable. But on the flip side, it leaves you really light when it comes to games because right now they would only have 4 games in the bank if they play this week and next week. But again, Coach Woody's looking out for his players, and you can't fault him for that. But right now, this is pretty much, I wouldn't say an elimination game, but when you look at it, Glass, actually, they're only a point and 3/4 behind Amherst County. So this is another game that could play a big role in the playoffs. If EC Glass could win, it might push them into one of those 4 playoff spots or be in contention for that. While if Amherst County, if they can win, it strengthens their hold into that 4th playoff spot.
Well, and you got to look at who they just played. I mean, EC Glass just played a tough they had a 13-7 win over Liberty, and Liberty runs at Maryland I, and they run downhill at you. So that was a very physical game. I can see why they didn't want to play on Tuesday or play 3 games in a week, essentially. So, and then Amherst just, they got down a couple scores against Jefferson Forest and came back and won that game last week. So, these teams have some momentum going into each other, and Coach Christmas is doing a good job at Amherst. And you know what you're going to get with Coach Woody at EC Glass. You're always going to get a quality product and a quality team, and it's fun to watch those guys play.
And the neat thing is when you look back at that game, the Amherst JF game, of course, Bob Chris was playing his old school. They were down 14-0, and then Amherst scored 27 straight to get the win. So a great job there. And again, the Seminole District is not a night off anywhere. Speaking of the Seminole District, it's a battle of the Liberties. It's Liberty Christian taking on Liberty. I love saying that, the battle of Liberties. Liberty Christian taking on Liberty. And when you look at these 2 teams in their respective Region 3C, Liberty Christian right now, they are a 1/4 point behind Western Albemarle for a playoff spot, while Liberty, they are 0-4, and they're tied with Rustburg for the bottom spot in Region 3C. But this is, again, a must-win for Liberty Christian if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. And obviously, it's a game against Liberty. They played strong all year. I mean, they again, lost to EC Glass by a touchdown. So this is a game you probably don't want to take anyone lightly on that.
No, and the Liberty Minutemen, I mean, that's as good an 0-4 team as you're going to see this year. I mean, you're right, they've lost some close games, and I think Broadway beat them by a couple touchdowns a week ago, and we watched them play EC Glass last week, and they've got some good players. It's just, that's the way it goes sometimes. You lose a couple close games, and it's hard to get that win. But you're right, LCA is really a fine team. I mean, their backs are tough. They've got 2 quality backs in Wyckoff and Davidson. They've got the big guy Rice, who everybody in the country wants him to play for them in college next. He's a junior this year in a couple of years here. So, they're tough, and their quarterback plays really well too. So this is going to be a real uphill climb for the Liberty Minutemen against the Liberty Christian.
Good game. And I'm just going to throw the other games that we got going on tomorrow. Covington at Allegheny, Halifax County at Patrick County, Bath County at Rappahannock County, Patrick County, Glade Spring at Chilhowie, and Holston at Rural Retreat. Anything stand out with those 5 games?
No, not really. I mean, those, again, we get into the 5th week. Some of these games are pretty meaningful, and then some of them don't mean that much at all. But hey, they mean something to those kids. and everybody's trying to win any game and all the games they can. So, but nothing really in that group stands out. Those aren't necessarily games that I'll be watching closely. I'll be interested, but not really watching them closely.
And the neat thing about Covington and Allegheny, they're starting, since the consolidation, they're not going to be playing each other hardly anymore. So this will be one of the last few times that they play each other. So that'll be neat there. Meanwhile, Saturday, I tell you what, if you got the internet and all these games are being streamed, you probably want to hit your clicker on, because there are some pretty good matchups. Probably the big one, a battle of unbeatens in Lord Botetourt taking on Franklin County. Lord Botetourt hosting Franklin County. And you got two beefy teams. You know, these two teams, you know what you're going to get when you see Franklin County and Lord Botetourt. And they have played some classic matchups over the last couple of years. And I'm sure Saturday will be no exception, because when you look at the playoffs, Lord Botetourt right now, they are leading the region, and they are leading it in a big way. Actually, they have a 1.5 lead over Abingdon for the top spot. While Franklin County right now, they are in Region 6A, and right now they have about a 3-point lead over Ocean Lake. So Franklin County right now in third, they're like a point and a half behind Thomas Dale. So the top two seeds, they get to host in that regional semifinal, and that's what you're really gunning for. One of the top two seeds get a home game, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if Franklin County get the win, it'll help them in points, and if Lord Botetourt beats Franklin County, that's definitely going to help them for points.
Yeah, and this is always a physical battle. You know, Franklin County just got by Northside Tuesday night, so I mean that was certainly a battle over there. So, I mean, you know, both these teams are physical. Both these teams will run right at you. Good coaches, similar styles. Botetourt just has so much size and so much skill all over the place. But again, you know, Coach Edwards at Franklin County, he's a master. He's a master at putting a game plan together. And so this will be worth the price of admission if they're letting anybody in, which they're not letting a lot of people in. But if you can get online and see it, it'll be worth it, because I think, you know, it's always good to get two undefeated teams together.
Meanwhile, another good matchup, this matchup with playoff implications, which would be Northside taking on William Byrd. Now, looking at it, William Byrd right now, they are in fourth place. They are 3/4 of a point ahead of Magna Vista. Northside, however, they're nearly 2 points back of William Byrd. So, you know, this is a key game. If, you know, William Byrd can get a win, it strengthens their hold on fourth. But if Northside can get a win, maybe they can move up into the top four.
Yeah, I think Coach Fisher's done a really good job. You know, Northside's only played 2 games, but, you know, they got into the cycle of where they had to take a break because of a COVID outbreak, or maybe it was contact with some other team with COVID. I'm not sure, but, you know, Coach Fisher's done a great job. When they played Franklin County the other day, I mean, I thought they looked really good for a team that hadn't spent a lot of time together and hadn't had much practice. So you're right. William Byrd, I mean, they're very physical as well. So again, these games are so much fun at the end of the year, these last 2 weeks, because they really could go either way, many of them.
Good stuff right there. And then a couple of games I'll throw at you, and you give me your thoughts on them. James River at Narrows, Martinsville at Bassett, Galex at Auburn, Fort Chiswell at George Wythe, Bland County at Grayson County, and Eastern Montgomery at Perry McClure. Any thoughts on those games?
Fort Chiswell at George Wythe is a good one. George Wythe is always good, but I saw Fort Chiswell play Auburn earlier this year, and they've got a lot of talent. They've got, you know, not a lot of numbers. You get in those small schools, there's not a lot of players out there, but the players they have can really play. And Narrows, to me, is really interesting. I mean, Narrows the last few years been really good. Coach Lowe down there has done a really good job, and it's interesting, you know, how he puts his team together and how he moves guys around from year to year. You know, Narrows, there's a lot of excitement in that town down there. They love their football.
And, you know, when the green wave gets rolling, they roll.
Absolutely.
So that's good stuff right there. So, you know, hey, and then by the end of next week, we will definitely have a good idea on where everybody will be in the playoffs, because right now that's where things get fun. But again, I'm going to assume that some of these teams, if they don't get in the playoffs, I'm sure they're going to schedule another game. But then again, you never know. Some might just say, hey, look, we've gone through enough. We'll wrap it up. But it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's getting exciting right now. I mean, it's such a odd season. I mean, we're only 5 weeks in. It feels like we've played 20 games and played so many games in some weeks. And we've had teams that had to go on pause and then come back, and so many games move. It just feels like we've played 2 seasons in one already, and we're still at only week 5. So, but the games are getting really exciting. I mean, in a normal season, you have so many teams going to the playoffs these days, but this year it's not going to be like that. I mean, it's just the top qualifier. So, all these games especially at the end of the year really mean something. They're playing for something.
Obviously, you're Captain Crunch. What good stuff can we see in your Crunch publications and the website and anything else?
Oh, well, the Crunch, we have a lot of fun with that. But the best part about the Crunch, the printed publication, is the coaches' comments. We talk to all our coaches each week. We have 3 different Crunch versions, one for Roanoke, one for Lynchburg, and one for New River Valley. And the coaches are gracious enough to talk to us each week and give us their players of the week and their scout team players and their unsung heroes, and give us their comments on the game they just played, as well as the game coming up. So that's a lot of fun in print. You also see that online. Online, our web address is crunchhssports.com. The HS in the middle is for high school, so crunchhssports.com. And, we usually have our 3 games on there and a lot of photos. CrunchMVP.com is our photo arm of our business, and there's a lot of great photos on there. So, we got a lot going on. The radio show is a blast. We always have a good time on that. We never know quite where it's going. But, we have a direction when we start, and then we just get in there and have a good time. And we need to get Jermaine. We need to get you back over there. But it's been such a quick season. It's hard to get everybody huddled up together.
Well, you can plug in the phone line. We got modern technology.
Is that modern? Yeah, okay.
Some cases. What are your 3 games? What are your 3 games you're shining your spotlight on?
For the Roanoke game of the week, it'll be Patrick Henry and Pulaski. Over in the Lynchburg area, there we've got, let's see, who do we have? We've moved it around a little bit. Who do we have this week? I'll have to think about it here. Saying last week we did Liberty and EC Glass. It's Heritage and Jefferson Forest. So we moved it to that game. We thought that game made the most sense and was a good game. And then in the New River Valley, we're gonna it looks like we're gonna go take on Narrows and Perry McClure, because we were gonna do the Radford Floyd game, and if that's not gonna happen, I think we're gonna go up 81 and go watch Narrows and Perry McClure.
That's fun stuff. Well, Captain Crunch, Carl York, joining me on Crunch Time, baby, right here on Wfxrtv.com. And again, I appreciate you so much, sir. And again, we're going to catch you next week because, as we said, that'll be the final week of the regular season, and we'll get into the playoff mix.
Sounds good. Thank you for all you do. You do a great job.